Thank you, everybody, for finding time to come out this morning, and you may be seated. I'm going to walk around a little bit. I like that we can have a conversation. So it's supposed to be a keynote, but I feel like it's going to be a conversation about my life. Oftentimes when you ask someone, a scientist, to talk about our lives, we're shy, we don't know where to start. And last night, I couldn't sleep well because I was wondering which part of my story do I want to share this morning. I'm here to inspire. I'm not a pastor, so don't expect too many Bible quotations. I'm only here to share what is real with us this morning. I grew up in Nigeria, and growing up, life wasn't that pleasant to me. When I was 7 years old, I remembered being a little girl, try to play too much. I kind of broke a few things in the house, and my mom wanted to have a conversation with me. She walked me out of the house. We walked out, and she started talking about how I came to this world. I'm a fifth child of 5 children. And it was that day that I found out that I am the child they didn't want that came. My mother told me a story that when she found out she was pregnant, I told my dad. Oh, my dad said, we don't want a 5th baby, we already want 4. She insisted and told my dad that if I happen to have this baby, I'm gonna make sure that I raise her by myself. That was the only condition that my father was going to allow my mom to have me. At 7, I found out this story. So I realized that I'm a child who couldn't ever cause trouble in my house. That I was completely invisible. So I had an elder sister. And all my life, all I knew was hand-me-down clothes. Whatever my sister wear, they would give to me. Because we didn't have too much. And since I was cause trouble, but I was also determined that I was going to excel. Imagine knowing since you were a child that you are a cornerstone, a piece that wasn't wanted. At 9, I joined my brothers and sister to start to hawk pepper. My mother, she was a trader, so growing up, we would hawk pepper. If you know Nigeria at all, we lived in Ibadan, so we lived in Mokola. We hawk pepper from Mokola, go to Bodija, go to different places to sell, because that was the only way we could make money for us to go to school. So I would keep my money every day, save it, and hopefully it's enough to pay my tuition. I was learning life very early. And at that point, I looked at my parents' life wondering, my dad has all of these people in the US. Why do we live here? Why are we poor? Why don't we have money? The differentiating factor was education. Where my father grew up, his cousins got to go to school, he didn't. So I realized, okay, if I was gonna get us out of poverty, there has to be a way. I looked around me, in my street, in my neighborhood in Mokola. What I saw was young people prostituting themselves for money, the boys smoking Indian hemp, and trying to play basketball and soccer. And when I looked deep, all I knew is that that wasn't a life that probably will make me better than my parents. So I was wondering internally, who should I emulate? What can I become? How do I make sure that this cycle of poverty doesn't repeat itself? On the wall of our living room, I found 2 inspirations that changed my life. My father's cousin, a professor of nuclear physics, his picture hanging on our wall. Another cousin of his, a medical doctor, his picture also hanging on our wall. So my dad talked about these people to us, how they got scholarships, how they moved abroad, how they, one of my uncles is the pioneer of atomic bomb. He came from a village in Ijare, and he's here in the US. So at an early age, I knew education could be my own compass to navigate the world, looking at how far my uncles had come. So I decided that anything it takes, I will give it to studying. Every day I would go to school from 8 a.m. till 2. I'll hawk pepper from 3 to 7. We go home by 9:30 when everybody goes to bed. I would study every night from 9:30 to 2 a.m. every day, Monday to Sunday. Yeah, for the kids whose parents had money, they'll go to lesson, after school coaching so they could do well. I was hawking pepper during this time, but I wasn't ready for those kids to beat me to it. So I would study at night to compensate. Early in life, I got to know that hard work actually pays. By the time I got to a year 4 in school, one of my teachers picked interest in me and followed me home to tell my dad, said, this girl is going to be great. I want her to write common entrance. I was in grade 9, and the teacher was proposing that I go to college. So my dad said, she's too young, she can't do that. By the time I got to grade 10, this woman didn't go to my house to tell my dad. She used her money to register me for common entrance and picked the hardest school in Ibadan and said she's gonna get in. A day before that exam, she followed me home to tell my dad, I have used my money to collect the forms. She's writing her exam tomorrow. Oh, my dad was pissed, but I did it. I wrote that exam. My name was number 1 on the list for that school. I got into that school, I was younger than everybody. People bullied me. By the time I got to SS3, I was the best performing student. I became the senior preferred girl of that school. At that time, he was sure that if I dedicate my time, if I put in effort, that truly I could become something through education. Despite the fact that my parents, my dad at that time especially, didn't really believe in me. He didn't see that I could do that exam on time. He didn't really want this kid. But by the time I became the head girl, he was looking at me and saying, oh, I have a superstar. When I was going to go to university, I wrote JAMB a couple of times. It wasn't successful. They didn't release the result. When the result is too good, they don't release it. So I told my dad, I said I was going to go ahead and do a diploma in Osu, another state, different from where my parents are from, where my brothers and sisters had gone to school. I said I wanted to try something new. This man, my dad, sold his car and gave me the money and said, there you go, I believe in you. And I promised him, I said, out of these 2,000 people, I'll be one of the best. I went through that one-year diploma program, and I was in the top 3 by the time I was done. Now, I had to pick a program. What do I want to study? Then I looked back and remember the man on the wall of my living room, the physicist, and decided that I was going to be like my uncle. So I went ahead and obtained a Bachelor's of Science in Physics with Electronics. And by the time I was graduating, in my 4th year, I started asking, I don't want to build an atomic bomb like my uncle, but what's the future of physics? What would physics be 5 years and 10 years? And I come across so many different new technologies that were going to take over the world at this time. That was in 2007. But those technologies, those new research weren't happening in Nigeria. A child from a poor home who had tried to see herself through school with some scholarships, how am I supposed to go abroad if these new physics areas weren't available in Nigeria? So I found out about Finland. I decided that I was going to give myself another chance and risk it all over. During all of this, I've taken some risk. I've gone to a school outside of Ondo State, or your state that I was familiar with. I went to Ogun State. When I was in school, I'd gone to Lagos to work. When I was in Lagos, during my internship, I would wake up every day at 3 a.m. from Ogba and go to VI, get there at 5:30 in the morning, waiting in front of the company. Hopefully they open by 6. Hopefully nobody kidnapped me. By the time I was finishing, I knew I had to use that physics degree for something. So I found out about Finland, that there was free tuition, and I could go get a master's degree. with 700 euros that I had saved. I didn't know anybody in Finland. I had an admission. I didn't have housing. I packed my bags without telling my parents, who would have told me no. I went to Finland to start all over. I got to the airport, everything was written in another language, and I was wondering, oh, so which way? But God always show up if you will take the risk. By the time I got to the train station, I met these two white guys speaking Yoruba. I quickly went to them, crying and asking. I said, I'm going to Kuopio. I don't know anybody there. Do you know anybody there? Can you help me? And one of them happened to have just come back from Kuopio from summer school. So he told me, get on the train. I'll make sure someone is waiting for you in Kuopio to help you. So I went to Kuopio, and truly somebody was at the train station waiting for me. By the time I was there for 1 month, they had found me a cleaning job that I can use and hold body. So I started my journey in Finland. I did a master's in biomedical engineering with major in medical physics, graduated top of my class, and by the time I was finishing, I was told I couldn't get a job because I didn't speak Finnish. I went to language school for 8 months, hoping that this was going to be my place. By the time I was done, I still couldn't get a job. And I asked God, I said, my uncle had PhD, so where are we going for this PhD? We're staying here or somewhere else? After 100+ applications, Canada opened its door with full scholarship for me to relocate to Canada to start my PhD. So, I didn't do 1 application, I didn't do 2, I did over 100. Sometimes you just have to keep knocking that door until it opens. Yeah, you've done 5 applications you didn't go through. It didn't mean you are a failure. It didn't mean you're not qualified. It didn't mean you're not good enough. Maybe it's not your time. Maybe that's not your place. Maybe God has a place He was preparing for you. By the time I found the professor who took me to Canada, he had advertised that position for 2 years. And when I wrote to him in 24 hours, he wrote back and said, I've been waiting for you. And guess what? I was doing everything on my own, trying to do those 100 applications, until one day I called my mom. I said, Mommy, you have to help me. And she said, let's just fast for 3 days. She asked me to do this skirt and blouse fasting. The first day you break it at 12, because she knows I like food. So you have to ease me into this fasting. Second day, she said you break it at 3. Third day, you should have grown some resistance. Take it until 6. It was during that quiet time that I applied. My uncle from Canada sent me a message the first day. I said, look at this University of Saskatchewan. Okay, because I was home praying, I applied. That first day, I wrote to that professor. By the end of that 3rd day, that man has sent me a letter to take to the embassy. Sometimes, when you do it alone, you won't go far. I have been applying for months until I did that skirt and blouse fasting. Nothing was coming through. If the Lord does not build the city, the builder labor, but in vain. I thought I had the credentials, graduated top of my class, I could get into any school. But until I did that fasting, nothing was happening. I was just knocking doors and nothing was opening. But yeah, you could call it a coincidence, but why didn't it happen early? But yeah, I got in. Oh, when I packed my bags from Finland and now heading to a country where they speak English, I knew quite all right that the Lord has opened the door, because it didn't happen by me just wanting it. Oh, the first day I arrived at Pearson Airport in Toronto, I said this out loud. This is the land flowing with milk and honey, and I'm here to possess it. I went to school in Saskatchewan, spent 4 years. While on my program in Saskatchewan, so many stories, so many things happened. I realized that there were no black people who looked like me studying biomedical engineering, that I was going to be one of all of these people. By the time I finished, I realized that I was the first black person to get a PhD in biomedical engineering, so I shared my story. I put that story online, I put it on social media. I also shared about my upbringing, how I was selling pepper, how I didn't have anything. That story went viral. In less than 24 hours, it was in Punch newspaper, it was on CBC radio in Canada. It was everywhere, and people were watching me on Channels TV. So I grew this massive followership on social media, my Facebook. Oh, I went from 300 followers to 5,000. I couldn't accept invitation anymore. I was wondering, this is the power of storytelling. What if I never shared how I grew up? But I decided to, because we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the power of our testimony. But at that point, the world started to look at me. In Nigeria, when you do great things, our foreign minister at that time, Abike Dabere, would tweet about you. When she tweets about you, you are blown. I saw myself being tweeted about. The government of Nigeria asked me to come home, to come and talk about Industry 4.0. And I grew this popularity among so many people. I'm from Ondo State. My state honored me with an award. Oyo State was claiming she was born here, she's ours. Among all of those things, I started thinking about what will my future look like? All of these people are making noise. I need to make money. He's looking for a job. At that time, Canada had just experienced economic crash. The oil and gas industry was going through an issue. That was the industry everybody was going to get a job. Again, remember the 100 applications? I sent out over 3,000 applications. I finally got a job. Again, you kind of give up after 3 applications. You kind of give up after 15 applications. If you do not try, you are not going to win. After I got a job, I created a 5-year plan. That, okay, the world is looking at me now, and in 5 years, I want to be a director. 1 year, 2 years in, I decided to go on another journey. I was looking at my career and realized that I could make more money, I could have better influence in the US, where innovation actually resides. And remembering my uncle, the professor of medical physics, that he excelled in the US. So I decided to carry my bag again and move to the US. 2019, I came to this country. A Fortune 500 company had hired me to come and start their 3D printing department from scratch. They brought me from Canada, moved my stuff, gave me papers, and brought me to this country to come and work. On getting here, 1 year later, I've been winning. For that company, I started with $1 million. Was able to build a department that it could give $50 million to. Won national awards in manufacturing. But a few things were still missing in my life. I wasn't married. People would still mock me. People would still look at me and just have different things to say about me. Maybe you're here today. You're wondering, there is one emptiness, there is one place, there is one thing you don't have. Just know that God has plans for you. I had been told many times to just marry anybody. Having told many times that, you're a strong woman. Strong women don't end up with strong men. Just find somebody, you will take care of it. But there is a part of my story that I skipped. My middle name is Deborah. And the book of Judges, Deborah was the leader of our people. Deborah was a trailblazer. She was the first chief judge of Israel. But Deborah was married to Lapidot. So every step of the way, I held on to the promise of God for Deborah, and I told God that I'm the Deborah of my generation. So if she was married, I will get my own husband, and it was going to be very dope. I'm not settling for mediocrity. I'm not going to marry someone because the world felt like it was time. God's time is never late. So I stood on that promise, despite all the, pushing, you're successful, you have all of this, just marry one person. And yeah, in this age and time, there is nothing digitization can't do. I met my husband on LinkedIn. When I met this man, I was wondering whether I was the one. And I remember back in Toronto, Daddy Adeboye came to have this festival that we usually have once a year. And I went to that festival, the night vigil, to pray. The only prayer I had that night was that I want my husband and I want him now. Why am I saying this? Every step of the way, there has been moments when I have held God accountable that he needs to fulfill his promise, and he has never failed. Sometimes as young people, we calculate things, we think if we do this, this is going to happen. But sometimes we forget a place of spirituality, that there is some things that we cannot control, that we have to actually go ahead and ask God. So I went to church that day. It was a night vigil. We prayed until 3, and I went home. You remember I met this guy on LinkedIn. We talked for a few times. He disappeared. After that prayer, I got to him. That day, this guy that I haven't talked to for 8 months called me, and he said, "Hey, are you still single?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I was wondering if we can try to date for 3 months. If it doesn't work, everybody goes their separate way. This is how we date by generation." Yeah. I said, "Okay, let's give it a try." I started talking to him every day. And 3 days later, he showed up in Toronto from Chicago. And we took it from there. And I was sure that God has done his thing. I had that conviction that finally God heard me on that ground that night when I held on to him and said, "You're not going until you give me my blessing." And I married that man. I wasn't really, I was letting him do his thing. But everything, all things work together for good for them that love God. I would look at my husband and people would say, "Does he have any children somewhere? Have you checked? Does he have papers?" He has 3 master's degrees. He's an American citizen. And this guy begged me to marry him. And at that time I was 33, and everybody thought it was a little too late. I don't know how old you are. I don't know what embargo someone has placed on you. But only if you will go on your knees and ask God, you'll see those miracles that you do not even believe will happen, because God has it. And he has it in store. And sometimes we don't ask enough. Sometimes we don't ask in faith. Sometimes we don't ask with everything we've got, and that's why that miracle hasn't happened. Sometimes all it takes is one more prayer, is one sleepless night, is that fasting, if you can really just have it. So I moved here to the US. In the last 3 years or 4 years that I've been married or been with this guy, I had watched this girl that used to sell pepper. I had watched us bought over 10 properties within the US and Canada. I have watched myself started a non-for-profit that have impacted thousands of lives. I have watched myself floated an engineering consulting company. I have watched myself floated a career coaching consulting company. And when I look back, I just wonder, maybe in your home today, maybe nobody believed in you. Maybe even your parents were like my parents, they didn't want you. Should that say, maybe that is already causing you to be depressed. Maybe because of that, you have closed up. But I brought you good news that if you wouldn't give up on yourself, God hasn't given up on you. That if you wouldn't give up on yourself, you will shine bright like a diamond and become a pillar stone. My parents, my mom, who fought for me? My dad didn't want me. Today I take care of them. Oh, if you put my name on Google, you will see hundreds of publications. You'll see articles, you'll see awards, you will see so many things. If I could become all of that, a black girl, there is more in stock for you if you will take that risk. I know, comfort zone is beautiful. Your comfort zone, you have everything that you think you need. That is not enough. Look at how I have gone. I left Nigeria with 700 euros. I didn't know anybody. Do you think God will forsake you? You think if you take that risk, if only you try to fall. If you don't try to fall, He's not going to catch you. If only you move one step and watch God carry you. Your comfort zone where you're sitting right now is the reason why God hasn't blessed you. You haven't dared to stand up. You haven't dared to do something different. You have settled for a degree that is easy because you think you're not smart enough to do the hard one. No, you are smart enough. It's because you have not tried. Give yourself a chance to flourish. There is greatness on the inside of you. A lot of times as young people, we become the people we'll follow on social media. I told you about the man on the wall of our living room. My uncle, the professor of physics, did not know that he had influenced my entire career until he read about me in Punch newspaper. He did not know. You're following so many people on social media, you're consuming information on a daily basis, they're having influence on your life. I looked at this man and I said, I want to study physics. I want to be like him. I want to get a PhD. I'll end up in the US. I did everything he has done. Who are you following? Who are you emulating indirectly? I want to beg you today. I know everybody's on TikTok. I want you to intentionally go and follow some people. Just go on social media and click follow for the right people because the influence they have on you can transform your destiny. And I want you to also go and unfollow some people because who you follow, you become. You have to go and click the unfollow button because they are not really preaching anything that edifies. They're not giving you content that helps you. You cannot follow people who are on the wrong path and expect yourself to land in greatness. We have digitization now. We have social media to our advantage and we can be more. I didn't have all of that. I have pictures on the wall of our living room and that made me this person. That took me from poverty, from a neighborhood where people were prostituting themselves to become a global ambassador. You have digitization, you have opportunity to become a lot if you consume the right information, but you have to take charge by making sure that you are positioning yourself in the right places, consuming the right information, because this can make you even bigger. For a lot of you who are here, who have grown up here, you haven't experienced any of those hardships, but I know you're struggling with your own thing. You have so many things that worries you. You have your own challenges. Yeah. How are we going to fight it? The Holy Spirit is there to guide you. Please ask for help. And I want to tell you that the disservice you can do to yourself is if you stop believing in you. Every step of the way, there has been naysayers. There have been people who will tell me I'm not good enough. Whether it's my dad or not, or a teacher, or someone telling me I'm black. or someone thinking black people can't do something. But every step of the way, I have believed the report of the Lord. The report of the Lord has told me I'm a victor. That report told me I'm Deborah. That report told me I will lead my people. That report told me I'm a trailblazer. And every of those promises I have fulfilled. Oh, I was telling my brother Leke that 2 months ago, I embarked on another risk. So I told you I made a 5-year plan after my university in Canada that I wanted to become a director. Well, it didn't get to 5 years before I reached that milestone. I became a director already 2 years, 3 years after college. Something that takes people 25 years, 20 years. You remember the story of Ahab. He was on the horse. He was on the horse. He's supposed to move fast. And Elijah was walking on the feet. And he outran Ahab because the Lord was with him. And that is what happened to every Christian. When the Lord is with you, what takes people 20 years, 25 years, may take you 5 years. Is the Lord with you? The question is, He's the Lord with you, because if He's not with you, you will toil day and night like those people who were fishing all night and they didn't catch anything. But when the Lord is with you, when you say, I want to be a director in 5 years, knowing fully well that it should take 20 years, He'll make it done in 3 years, because whatever you say in His ears, He will do. I want to encourage you this morning that if you're working alone, things wouldn't work. But when you allow the Holy Spirit to be with you, the world will wonder how. The world will wonder why. I lived in Canada. People would say, Canada is small, that's why she's successful. Canada is small, that's why they heard her name. 3 years ago, I moved to this country with no American degrees, with my Nigerian accent. And yes, in this country, 1 year later, I won a national award, 2 national awards. 3 years later, I became a director in this country, the House of Innovation. So you sit down there and say, hey, some things can happen for black people. You are not just a black person. You are a royal priesthood. You are a child of God. You carry excellence. The spirit of excellence dwells in you. I want you to daily, no matter how much bullying is happening around you, I want you to daily walk with your shoulder high. Everyone here deserves a chance, and you will get your chance only if you believe. When I came to this country, I believed that I was going to make it here. A few months ago, I had my first child at 37. And when I look at that, I look back at the mockery. I look back at people who told me I had to settle for crumbs at the table. I look back at those people who told me to marry people who were even up to my father's age. But I know that it can only be God. And again, I bet on myself. 2 months ago, I quit my job to run my own business. That yes, when the Lord calls you a Deborah, that you're going to lead your generation, you don't bow to the world forever. You stand so that the Lord can hold your hands and take you to the next level. And I am challenging God again and saying, hey, this entrepreneurship business that I have launched now, yeah, I'm expecting you to do what you do and what only you can do. And I must tell you, I was telling my brother Lakey down there, he was asking me, how's entrepreneurship going? I said, every month in the last 3 months, I have doubled what corporate America was paying me. Why? I dare to challenge God. Is there somebody here this morning who wants to challenge God? Is there someone here this morning who is ready to take a risk? Is there someone here who wants to bet on themselves because the heaven is open? And God is with you. He's expecting you to make the move. We are going into the new year. And I want to tell you that if you remain comfortable if you remain where you are, the blessing you want is not coming. The blessing you want is not in your comfort zone. As you plan for 2023, I want you to challenge yourself. Do something that makes you scared, because you will watch the Lord move in for you. You'll watch him do wonderful things for you. To every young person here who sits in a corner doubting themselves, I was you. I remember when my mom told me that 7 years old, that I was just her child. I was the child they didn't want. I cried many nights. I was quiet in my house. I waited for everybody's tuition to be paid before they paid mine. I accepted all the hand-me-down that my sister had won because I knew that I wasn't really wanted here. But that cornerstone, the Lord has made a pillar stone. And I pray that every of you who happen to be here today, that the Lord will do wonderful things in your life that will surprise your parents, that will make your parents apologize that they are sorry, and that would make them look and say, God, thank you for fighting for me. Thank you for showing the world that from this womb, a good child can come out. Everything I shared this morning is to the glory of God, and is to show you that people who look like you can be better. And I hope you go out there to do exploit. I hope you go out there to innovate. One thing was constant in my life. I was researching the future. When I studied physics, I just didn't study physics and say, let me get a job. I was looking at the future of physics. What's the future like? Are you in school right now? Are you wondering what the future is like in your profession? Because you have to step into it on time. Are you working? What's the future in your profession? If you're talking about digitization and the future of work, 3D printing is one of those areas. That's where I sit today, as a trailblazer, as an innovator. Where are you sitting in your career? Are you already projecting and going towards the future? If you're not going towards the future, please get home today and research what the future is like in your career. I believe all of us have something to contribute to the future of work. I believe there are opportunities for you, and I hope you take it. Thank you, everyone, and I hope this has blessed you.
Wow, 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 wow. Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you for this knowledge that you've actually exposed us to. I don't know how many of us have benefited from this short life description, if I should say, of Doctor. How many of us have benefited? How many of us? Okay. I don't know if any of us would want to share a word or two as to what we gained from Doctor's life experiences. I gained a lot, and I'm ready to share mine. I don't know whether you gained. So please, is there anyone who wants to share just one or two? What we gained, just one or two? Anyone? Okay. Can you please hand her a mic quickly? Yeah.
Thank you so much. One thing that I did learn from Dr. Bamiji, of whom I've known on the internet for several years, I think I've been following her since she was in Finland, so I know this story, and it feels so great that I'm listening to her talk about it in person, and I feel honored to be here. One thing that I did learn, however, is that you have to be passionate about being successful. It is not something that someone is going to present to you. It's something that you must, from the bottom of your heart, desire. And desire comes from you understanding that you've got to give something and you've got to sacrifice something. And what is that thing that you're willing to give up in order to get that thing that you desire? And you have to go for it without giving up. That is one thing. There are a lot of things, but you said one thing, so I'm going to stick to that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. Any other person? Any other person? There was so much knowledge you shared. Yeah, there's one person there. Hallelujah.
I learned that we should put our trust in God, and then the name we bear has a very I don't know how to put it, but we should have faith in our names. Like she said, her name was Deborah. She's like a leader, and then you should have faith in your name.
Okay.
And yeah, that's all.
This one. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. So I also gained so much. Oh, there's one more. Okay, let's give allowance for just one more. One more.
Praise God.
Hallelujah.
My name is Jessica, and thank you so much, Dr. Olubami. I've been your follower for a while, so today, hearing you speak live was really inspiring, especially hearing you talk about your relationship with God. That's really eats me because, most times we'll think it's by our works, it's by our ability, but no, that's not it. Just like you, myself, best graduating student from the university. I had my master's here, 4.0, and, I thought that could make way for me, and, the truth is that we need God. No matter who you are or the abilities you have, without God, you can't go as far as you could go if you do it on your own. So thank you so much. I'm a big fan of you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. One thing I also learned, just to be snappy, it's from Doctor's life story, is that success it's a constant, it's an embodiment of perseverance and hard work. Perseverance and hard work. And the summarization of Doctor's life, it kind of speaks to the adage, the popular adage that says that the heights that were reached by great men were not attained by sudden flight, but whilst their companions slept, they toiled upwards. They toiled and then they worked hard towards making sure their goals or their visions were accomplished. So without wasting much time, I just want to appreciate Doctor again and thank her so much for her time and how much knowledge she shared with us. So moving on quickly, we have our breakout section. We have our able men and women of God. We have our own Dr. Olubamiji. We have Mrs. Adetoro, who is a Chief Financial Officer. We have Joshua Annan, who is a real estate broker and coach. And then we do have Mr. Leke Ademuli, who is also an IT professional and expert. So quickly, we have our rooms. We have 2 rooms on the other side of the building, and one room will be here, and then we have we're also going to have one breakout section in the conference room. So just to be clear, the breakout room, Tomidi, I don't know whether you want to talk.
Hello, everyone. So thank you for that. Just want to clarify something. Can everyone come inside so that we could break out the sessions evenly? So if you're working, I know a lot of us are working, so just ushers, can you please get people to come inside so we can count everyone? So if you're working in the back, just come in, because this session is important for everyone. This is why we're here. It happens all the time. You see people serving, but they miss things and stuff. So we want everyone to be impacted at this event. So everyone come inside. So like you said, we have about 4 different sessions that's going to be going on. So what we intend on doing is it's a 15-minute per session. So what would happen is the first session will come into your room as leaders, and they rotate. The second session comes in and rotates. So you'll be talking, pretty much saying the same thing 4 times. The Holy Spirit will lead you. You go as the Holy Spirit leads you. You could change it a little bit, but like just rotate a little bit. So one thing we want to do right now is I would encourage everyone to just pick a number 1 through 4, and we go all around, obviously except for the leaders. And we'll go all around, and once we are done, then you would know what room you are. And then you can go ahead and just let them know which room. So that's how we'll do it. The first one will be staying in here. The second one will be staying in the divine class. The third one will be staying in the witness class. And the last one will be staying in the conference room. Dr. Adi will be in the conference room. Leke Ademuluyi would be in the divine class. Yeah, Joshua Hannon would be in the witness class. And I struggle saying your name, Adetoro. Adetoro, right? Yes. Oh my gosh. Because it's 2 A's. A, so I don't know which one's the first one. It's like same letter. Adetoro, right? Okay. And Miss Adetoro Abodnarin will be in here, so you guys will just rotate. So if you don't mind, we're just gonna do it. I know it's unofficial, but we'll do it this way. So we'll start from Tumi. You pick a number 1 through 4. And Solemn, you pick a number, and we just go all around zigzag. So we're ready? Tumi, 1. And please remember your number. This is the part. Don't come back